Hey, this is guitarist Eric Skye coming at you from beautiful Portland, Oregon. Welcome to day one of the 30-day guitar challenge. I am very deliberately starting with the topic of groove for your first challenge because I feel pretty passionately that it's just super important. It's something that we can apply to what we already know and really bring it to another level. Sometimes I'll tell students, if you take two different people playing the same guitar with the same pick and the same strings and the same chords and everything's the same and one of them sounds better, what's left? It's really the groove. The way your music feels is at least as important as how it sounds. I personally believe it's like the most fundamental way that people perceive music. Sometimes we'll listen to something and there's a lot happening. It seems like great playing, whatever that is, but unconsciously we can't kind of lock into it, and so we sort of reject it a little bit. I think sometimes we'll listen to something that we're thinking, God, I hate this kind of music, but you're kind of locked into it and you kind of like it more than you think you do, I think. Or sometimes I'll tell people, if you take perfectly great chords, like maybe the chords of G major, but you kind of play them, not really thinking about when you're gonna switch. You've got this great, got a nice guitar, nice pick, new strings. I'm in tune to the best of my knowledge. But if I'm just sort of not playing in time, just kind of rushing around a little bit, it doesn't really sound very good. On the other hand, if you take something where the harmony we know is bad, like if you just throw your hand down, just grab something, but you put it in a groove, 2, 3, 4. It's weird, but it's like, you can lock into it. So, to me, it sounds better. Anyway, I'm just trying to make the point that I think that, the way your music feels will often trump how it sounds. So it's important. But unfortunately, it's kind of a hard thing to teach. I can point to you exactly where D is on the fretboard, but there's really nowhere in the room for me to show you exactly where it is to play just behind the beat and make it sound relaxed and cool. But I'm going to try. I'll preface by saying I certainly am not claiming that I have the best time in the world. I'm not the guy you hire if you want, me to superimpose 11 tuplets, or something like that. I just try to go for a real basic kind of feel and just stay in time for the most part. And this, frankly, was an Achilles heel for me. Most of what I'm preaching today is because of just my own experiments with myself and just, I think when I got more serious about getting my groove together, then suddenly, people seemed to like what I was doing quite a bit more. It didn't change anything else, So I really see the value in it. For most people, including myself and many, professional musicians, the problem is rushing. So what that means is that you're getting to the next beat a little too soon. It kind of makes sense because, again, there's nowhere really in the room to point to. We don't really know where that beat's coming until it's there, right? So it makes sense that it's kind of like walking in a dark room with your hand out. You're just kind of reaching out, trying to find that wall there. And we're just a little anxious and we just get there a little too soon. Unfortunately, it's just much cooler to be a little late to the party. So not only do we not want to be there exactly on time, but we actually want to be kind of a little behind the beat for most styles of music. So anyway, one sort of cure for this is to use a metronome. But before you turn off this video, I'm just going to go over some really basic, simple, but not easy things that you can do with the metronome that I think will definitely help with your groove. So really, job one is just playing in time to begin with, right? So, that's just about sort of getting on the train, right? To groove sort of implies a little bit more about once you're on the train, being able to move around from car to car a little bit. So I'll try to talk about that a little bit too, but just for getting on board, I'm going to show you what I do with the metronome. So Okay, I have my metronome. I actually use, not surprisingly, an app on my phone, but you can use a mechanical metronome, or there's websites at metronomeonline.com where you can just go to that page and you got a metronome. Metronomes are everywhere, but I like this one. It's called Clockwork. It's not very advanced. It just makes a sound that sounds appealing to me. There are more advanced metronomes, and there are things that you can do that are much more algebraic with metronomes. But I'm going to talk about just something to keep the beat. So usually, what people learn first to do with a metronome is to have it mark the quarter note. And if you're not sure how to do that, one cool thing about apps like this is they have a tap feature. In other words, you just kind of tap the screen and it sort of figures out what your beat is. So maybe if you're kind of playing you can kind of go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it turns out it kind of averages it. That's 107 beats per minute. So that can be a really cool thing. So maybe take a tune and do that so you have a good starting point. And usually if you just kind of feel the downbeat like that, or you just feel every beat, the quarter note, that's a good starting point. So I'm going to try to play something. I'm going to try to play like a little fiddle tune. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on 140. That's pretty slow for a fiddle tune, but I think it's a nice moderate tempo. And hopefully you can hear this. So that's 140. So I'm going to try to get into this. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think you can hear I'm pretty locked in. I think I've got it. The problem with marking the quarter note, though, is kind of two things. The main thing is I think it's not making me feel rushed. It's making me feel hurried. It's just not very relaxing to hear that. So that's kind of the one problem. And then the other problem is that it's kind of doing all the work for me. It's good. I mean, at first, it's going to be a lot of work for you to just connect with the metronome. But after a while, it's kind of doing the work for you. You're not being challenged on your ability to predict the next beat, right? So a really good next step is then to cut that number in half. So I happen to know, because I'm a math whiz, that half of 140 is 70. So now I have it set on 70. And now I can play at the same tempo, but I'm feeling less hurried, and it's also it's doing half the work it was doing for me. So now I'm having to kind of work harder to latch onto it. So, all right, I'm going to give you an example or two. So I'm going to keep this thing on 70, and I'm going to try to play Cold Frosty Morning, but I'm also going to try to have it just mark the backbeat, 2 and 4. So this is a challenge. Hopefully this makes sense. This was very hard for me to learn how to do when I started doing it, but I'm going to give you a tip, and that is to do what bluegrassers call the boom chuck. So this tune is in A minor, so the boom would just be the open fifth string, right? And then the chuck would be the rest of the chord, right? So that's boom chucking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the boom on 1 and the chuck on 2, or I'll put the boom on 1 and 3 and the chuck on 2 and 4. So with no further ado, so what I'm going to do is every time it clicks, I'm going to say 2, 4, 2, 4. And once I'm comfortable with that, I'm going to put the 1 and the 3 in between. So 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the boom on the 1 and hopefully get this thing up and running with the strum. And I'm just going to stay there until I feel sort of locked in. You ready? 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, no charge for the clam, but hopefully you can hear that it's locked in, but pretty well locked in, and by emphasizing the 2 and the 4, it's giving it sort of this lilt. It's sort of putting it a little bit behind the beat, which is just kind of, in my opinion, the essence of just Western music, besides, say, maybe, classical music or something. But that behind the beat feel is really what we're trying to achieve with that style of music, with stuff that swings like jazz, shuffles, funk, just basically everything. Like, put it on the 2 and 4 for everything. I'll give you a couple more demonstrations, but really try it for everything. All right, I'm going to put on my finger picks, and we'll play like a little swing tune. All right, let's jump back into the metronome here. I'm going to leave it at 70, and going to start off with a G13 chord. I'm going to do the same boom chuck business. 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom chuck, boom chuck, boom. Just hang there till you're ready. Anyway, so to me, that's a reasonably good swing feel. So the 2 and 4 business is accomplishing the same thing it was in the fiddle tune. It's just putting that lilt in there. But it is harder than it looks, I think. But once you get it in there, it's going to, because it's just human nature to kind of want to emphasize where that click is, and it's going to have you emphasizing the 2 and the 4, which is just going to put you behind the beat. So just a great thing to do. And you can do that with a blues shuffle or a funk, or if you've got some finger style contemporary thing. I mean, whatever you do, that'll definitely help. So your challenge of the day is to make friends with your metronome. Again, start off with just putting it on the quarter note and just trying to get comfortable with it. But then eventually try to put it on the 2 and 4 and apply that to everything you do, and just always practice that way. I tell students that I pretty much am always practicing with a metronome. If I'm just playing around the house, which isn't that often, I don't, but most of the time I have a metronome going, sometimes with headphones so I'm not driving everyone crazy. But I feel like if I'm not practicing with a metronome, I'm just practicing notes. And I think at best that's just half the job.